just a bit of an introduction as to who Andrea Marsh is and what Andrea Marsh does.
Right. Hi. So I'm Andrea. I'm from Cotswold Menopause, but I'm actually a shiatsu practitioner in Chinese medicine. And shiatsu you may not have heard of. It's a wonderful therapy, and it's the same knowledge as acupuncture, so the Chinese medicine basis, but it's actually done as a gentle acupressure therapy. You're fully closed, and I use my fingers. And I've been doing that for 15 years, and then for about the last 5 years, I've actually started to help women alleviate their menopausal symptoms, not just with the shiatsu, but also with supplements. And I'm about helping women and myself have a successful natural menopause.
Awesome. So acupressure, is that working with like the meridians?
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, and we can work with the meridians, or we can work with the specific points, because you probably know the bodies are riddles with points.
Yeah.
And what's most powerful about it is about knowing which points to press. So actually the treatment can be very simple, because we don't have to press too many points. You can make the body feel comfortable, almost give you a massage and relaxation type feeling, but actually then the point work can be quite minimal. Because when people come in with their symptoms, we build from that the underlying energy imbalances, and then you press, obviously the points that are helping those. I'm sorry, I'm being totally distracted. I've got a dog here that can't get down off the chair because she's caught in a cable and a desk.
Bless her.
Come on, get down. I'm so sorry.
Do not worry. Do not worry.
Yeah, that's the working from home nowadays, isn't it? Dogs.
I've got a dog bed in every single room of the house, and wherever I go, he moves there with me. So I am totally used to that distraction they have. It's fabulous. So yeah, that sounds really interesting, because I mean I've had acupuncture.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, but I had acupuncture from a physiotherapist on my shoulder, and I've also had like reflexology. But I've also, when I did my yoga teacher training sort of last year, we did a bit of work when we did our Kundalini sort of element of the training, where we were doing a bit of acupressure on the foot. So putting the two, like when obviously in yoga we work with what we call the nadis, which is, I think, very similar to the meridian system within Chinese medicine as well. So it's kind of working on those energy pathways that go through the body to help, sort of open you up and move energy around. And I also do Reiki as well. So again, sort of working with that energy pathway. I always find it really lovely when I actually get a lot of really positive feedback doing energy work than actual doing sort of like the physical, like Swedish massage, which I've done, or maybe even like the Finnish training.
Shiatsu is very, very gentle. Shiatsu is just, I mean, sometimes, yes, I've got to stick an elbow into a glute to help it release, but predominantly it's almost like Reiki, but through touch.
Yeah.
So because when you're dealing with the energetics of the body, the emotions of the body, and the fascia, it's actually a very gentle touch that helps these things to relax, to open, to unwind, to flow again. So yeah, it's I sometimes say it's like having reflexology all over the body. You are closed, so but it's and you have that deep feeling and well-being of a massage, but actually then it's been very, very kind of streamlined to what's actually going on with you, which made it really powerful for relieving something like night sweats.
Yeah.
In the first, you can almost sort out night sweats after one treatment. Hot flushes actually in Chinese medicine have a completely different cause. So I separate out night sweats from hot flushes completely. I don't, it's like we can help one quickly and the other one's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But bringing the body back into balance, whatever to balance may mean, but, balancing out the energetics, helping circulation, and it is going to be having an effect on your hormones, your endocrine system, and definitely calming down those stresses that you're feeling and being supportive and restorative to like the kidneys, which is adrenals and fatigue and all that area. Interestingly, what Chinese medicine has that Western medicine doesn't have is we talk a lot about depletion. Western medicine is very much, you've got some information, we'll remove it. So Western medication is about removing excess. But what's going on with the menopause specifically is a deficiency in the body. It's the body losing stuff and missing stuff and not having enough of what it needs. And so Chinese medicine really lends itself to that because we understand about the deficiencies of the body.
Yeah.
Really, really simple example might be, because actually I woke up this morning with a crick in my neck, which has turned into a creaky shoulder. Now, you might say, oh, I've got a neck and shoulder pain, I'll take a painkiller, and the painkiller may not work. And that'll be because actually the issue is a cold issue. So it might have caught a chill in the night or something. So what helped my shoulder today was hot shower, hot pad, tiger balm, magnesium oil. So it was all things to heat up and stimulate the blood flow and get the muscles working again. So I treated it as a deficiency and I applied things like warmth to help it. And that's the way we treat, deficiencies, menopausal women in a nutshell, really, is we understand what's missing from the body and needs to go back in.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because it's one of the things I say to sort of when I first start working with people is a lot of the problems that we have with the Western world is that we kind of put a name on everything and we have to have an explanation for everything. And we have to have stress and we have mental health. And I'm not saying that they don't exist, but the sort of like the Eastern cultures and the way that they look at those kind of things.
Yeah.
They don't have, like, there was a study done where they kind of showed the number of the percentage of people with mental health and stress issues. And it was exorbitantly high in Western cultures, but in Eastern barely there at all.
Yeah,
it's not that they don't get stressed or they have those issues, but they just call them something like you've got low energy or
they've got better terminology. They're more ways of explaining. When I was back doing my thesis in college, the number one reason why people were off work was backache.
Yes.
10 years later, the number one reason people were off work was stress. And other words that are used when people come to me is I'm tense or I'm anxious. But they're all kind of buzzword labels. And I think when the word stress wasn't around, people had to say backache because there was nothing else bad enough to get them off work. They didn't have the terminology. And that's why Western side is very much like you say about the labels. But if you went to or spoke to somebody like me or anybody that sees things from an Eastern medicine pattern, okay, you say you're stressed or you say you have tension or anxiety, any of these kind of words, but what does that mean to you? And then you break it down into the symptoms. And this is why it just fits so perfectly for the menopause. It's like, it doesn't really matter if you're perimenopausal or menopausal. And don't cry that a blood test isn't going to give you that answer. There's actually better ways of resolving this. And that's like speaking to somebody who understands, like you and me. Because once we know what your symptoms are, what it means to you, then we start balancing out, and I say it's a lot of little changes that accumulate to see the overall effects, but women can start seeing changes in 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
As long as they're doing the right things, which is supplements for the nutrition that's missing, gut health balance, detoxing the liver, there's all sorts that can be done. And I don't think too many of them are intrusive to life, really. Probably one of the most intrusive things to a woman's life is telling her to take it easy and rest up.
Yeah. Probably one of the most
time. Those are things women don't want to hear. And I completely understand, kids, grandparents, life, career and everything. And carving out time is difficult. But I'm sure you agree with this, actually. One of the major things is you have to start respecting your getting on for 50 or something, or closer to 50 than you are to 30, and that that person can't compete with who you were 10 and 20 years ago.
And it's I have one of the ladies who I do a lot of my training with and sort of like professional courses with, and she puts it in a really good way where she sort of says that this generation of people that are currently experiencing peri-post-menopause, they are what we can kind of kindly term as the sandwich generation. So we've got the children below us that we've got to look after, and we've got aging parents above us that we're starting to have to think about what's going to happen with them, and we have to look after them a little bit more. And so although the children are of an age where they're not necessarily babies, but they're still demanding.
Yeah, and that could be right through to 30 odd.
Yes, absolutely. I'm 40 and I still ring my mum up going, Mum. But, you know, we've got these parents above us as well. So we kind of like, we've got the pressure coming from both sides of us as to what the demands that have been asked of us.
Plus the careers, because I also say we're the generation that could have it all, you know, Thatcher's children and thereafter, where women went out and got careers and kept up with boys. And I totally agree with all that. I agree with being given the option to do these things because I was a career person. But I think that mentality of having to be as good as, but actually having to be better than, actually meant that a lot of women put their energy into their careers as well as having families. And as well as now the body image, you know, women exercise now like they never exercised before. And then you've got the food industry screwing up foods that they give us, or the food not having the nutritional content that it used to have.
Yeah.
And I think this has all come together because I get asked quite often, why is the menopause so bad right now? Is it just we're talking about it? And I said, we are talking about it because it is bad. And it's bad because it's kind of a perfect storm of the 80s and 90s through to now and the effect it's had on the women of that generation.
Yeah. And a lot of it is like, you know, like you said, a lot of it is that kind of that sort of pressure and stress and tension that we kind of label all of those things with. But it, like you say, you know, what does your menopause look like to you? Everyone is slightly different. Everyone's got a different, you know, experience with the menopause.
Yeah.
Some don't have hardly any symptoms. Some seem to get loads of them. So it's you know, and I think again, another side of it is the perception that we have of the menopause. So there's a lot of these preconceived ideas that it's going to be this or it's going to be that, and then it's not as bad or it's worse. You know, we never get that perception of things right, but by having that idea, it's potentially putting even more pressure.
But again, it's back to the Western label, isn't it? And the label's got negative connotations. It's like anxiety's got negative connotations, and the feelings that people are associating anxiety with, the adrenal release, can actually be from fear or excitement. It's just we've now attached to. So when you used to feel excitement about something, if you now don't register it excitement, you register it as fear and negative things, then actually you carry on thinking it's fear and negative things. You actually create a catch-22 cycle by making it worse and creating other symptoms. Again, it's the danger of labels, and then, you know, and then that becoming a fad picked up by the media, more and more people, that's what I've got. So whereas 20, 30 years, that's the bins now being collected. Whereas it was 20, 30 years ago, it was a bad back off work. 10, 15 years ago, it was stress off work. Now, you know, current climate is people off work with anxiety. And it's just, it's the same set of symptoms, because these are genuine symptoms. People have these symptoms. I'm not dismissing the symptoms. It's just, it's getting put under a brand or a label, which isn't necessarily helpful for people. Be far better to actually break it all down into what it is for them.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece the other day about kind of like the sympathetic nervous system and how, like, you've obviously got the two branches, well, three. You know, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, but we've kind of got stuck in this loop now where one is almost always slightly on, slightly charged or stuck where which is obviously switching the other one off, because they can't both be on at the same time. They kind of like work.
And this is a lot of why people can't relax, and this is a lot of why I've literally just finished a blog on insomnia. And because I see one of the main questions I see across menopause groups, anybody got any tips to help me sleep? And I go, there is no quick tip to sorting out insomnia. It's a lot of things, but you break it down into all the different things it is. One of the biggies, the 4 a.m. wake up and not being able to get back to sleep, is because the nervous system, you've broken it down into the para and the sympathetic. I never remember which one is the switch off one. Is it the para?
Yeah, the parasympathetic is the down regulator, so that's the rest and digest. Sympathetic.
That's the one that at 4 a.m. in the morning isn't getting to shut down and switch on this restorative kind of cycle that you need. So you're left in the on-the-go sympathetic, the knee-jerk adrenal. The adrenals causes the cortisol. The additional cortisol has its own set of symptoms attached. So yeah, people are left, and it's I say if you can't sit down and watch an hour's television program without getting fidgety or getting up and moving around, then you've got an issue with relaxing and, you know, an issue with your nervous system.
Absolutely. And then you've got the added thing as well, obviously, with the cortisol production, because cortisol is made from the same branch of cholesterol as progesterone. So when your stress response is kicked on, the cortisol actually steals what should be going to progesterone.
Yeah.
So you end up not making, so you're pushing your sort of sex hormones even further out of balance with each other and causing dominance.
And cortisol steals kind of the nutrition from the body, doesn't it? So this is why suddenly women can go, I've got aches and pains and I feel tired like I never have before. I mean, that's a real sign that cortisol is playing havoc.
Yeah. And there's the other side of it as well, like you mentioned a moment ago, that all of the food manufacturers have sort of depleted the nutritional value of food, and we've now suddenly got foods that cost twice as much that are half the size with half of that of the nutritional value of what they used to have. And of course, obviously, then the gut dysfunction's gone out of the window as well. So that's again throwing all of those other systems out of function. And it's I think, like I said to you before we started talking properly, was when I started teaching restorative yoga, it was like a real wake-up call moment for me, where it was like, actually, I can just give myself permission to lie here and be comfortable and just put like a lavender pillow over my eyes and not move.
And that is good for you, because it's getting across that mindset that this is to rest is part of your whole regime. Whether that, is part of your exercise regime, it's part of your mental wellness regime. And actually, you make a good point there, because I have shiatsu is done on a Japanese futon, so that's done on the floor. And actually, to lie down on the futon for 20 minutes is a completely different experience as you lying down in your yoga position. These are a different posture for the body than going and lying on the bed.
Yes.
So it's almost, I'd say to someone, lie down on your living room rug. It's got to be comfortable. But for some of these power naps, for some of these kind of postures for the body to replenish in, because I think in yoga you've got one that's called dead man's pose, haven't you? That's just
we've got corpse pose.
Corpse. Lying in corpse pose is very restorative. Yes. But I don't think lying in bed with the pillow creates the right posture of the body to create that pose.
Yeah.
So on my futon, on a rug, on a yoga mat, you get this, and it's whether it's it taps into, on my side of things, it allows the meridians to flow in a slightly different way. It opens them up.
Yes.
But there's a very different feeling to lying on the floor in corpse pose to lying in bed.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where when I've taught yoga classes, even when I've taught Pilates classes, and I do like a 5 minutes of just relax at the end, lay on the floor, be in silence, just whatever. And so many people say to me, I'm just going to fall straight asleep if I do that. And they never do.
No.
And I'm like, no, you're not going to fall asleep, because your body's doing something different. Your body knows what it's got to do when it's in that position. If you fall asleep, you need sleep. So just don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
But if you don't fall asleep, your body is restoring itself, it's fixing, it's regenerating.
What you might notice with some people, and this is what I like to get to at the end of the shiatsu treatment, is the fascia starts releasing.
Yes.
And myofascial release is like little twitches. And I've got to bring somebody down quite quickly in a shiatsu to then give the space, because you can do all the manual pressure and whatnot as much as you want, but the magic to your body and for yourself and for your healing happens if the body is just lying there. You might be holding the shoulders gently, because you're helping the process, you're facilitating the process. And then you start seeing little jerks in the body. It might shoot from the right shoulder to the left hip and down the left leg, and this is signs that your body is actually starting, the tension that you're holding, and that a lot of that tension is emotional. The fascia covers everything. It covers the muscles, it covers the bones. It's the network highway of the body. It's probably the least known about, and probably one of the most important things that's holding the body together. So for the fascia to release by itself, which is what it's going to do in your restorative pose at the end, is just so incredibly powerful. But we don't allow the space, we don't allow the silences. we don't allow the stillness because that's not in our culture. We're an on the go 24/7 culture.
Yeah.
But they've got longevity in the East because they know the power of the stillness and the silences.
Yeah, and I taught my yoga teacher training. I actually did it with like traditional Himalayan yogis and gurus, and it was really interesting because you'll be on we had to sort of do some of it on Zoom, obviously, because of the current situation.
Yeah.
But we do these classes online, and they just sit and stare at the camera for ages without saying a word. And everyone, you could see them kind of itching, going, why is he not speaking? Is he frozen? What's going on?
Well, I suppose on Zoom, that could be the case. When I did my training in the room, because I was like 15, 20 years ago, Japanese, you have to kneel in seiza, and you have to kneel in seiza and watch. And you're not allowed to ask questions when you're watching like a master do a treatment on someone. You're just watching, observing, holding the energy. And boy, oh boy, that teaches you patience. But it also teaches you that time can fly when you're in that kind of almost meditative, restorative kind of energy.
Absolutely. And it was amazing. Actually, you said kneeling. That's one thing that it really struck me when I was doing my yoga training, was like these yogis, they're not young by any stretch of the imagination. They are not young bucks that sort of they're jumping around. They're all kind of 50 and above.
Yeah.
And they're handstands, headstands, they're kneeling, and watching the other people in the group, like on their screens, they were struggling with just the kneeling aspect of it because our bodies are so, like the fascia, like you say, the fascia is just holding that tension.
Well, our fascia is aligned to sitting at a desk and in a car. Yeah. What I used to do when I used to drive a couple of hours across country for my old career is once I got there, there's some lovely plush, like, those square shaped leather sofas. And that would be perfect for kneeling on, and it's called the stomach and spleen stretch in our Makaho terms, but it's where you kneel and then lean right back. I'm sure you've got a yoga pose like it, and that was basically to undo the tension of 2 hours of driving, and it used to really, really work. So yes, our bodies are, and even if people cycle, this is the same pose for cycling. Walking, you see people hunched forward for walking. So much of, and a lot of women's cramping problems for time of the month is to do with like the psoas muscles being tight from sitting in this position all the time. When I learned all that, I just reduced my monthly cramps like from 100% to 10% because of stretching the muscles.
It's amazing, isn't it, though? Because that is literally, I wrote something the other day. Again, I write a lot of content. I've got a lot of time with lockdown and things like that.
Yeah.
I was writing something the other day on my Facebook community and about exactly that, the psoas muscle, the quadratus lumborum muscle, how that affects the pelvic floor, how the pelvic floor then impacts your monthly period pain, like if you've got endometriosis or things like that, if it's going to impact that. And a lot of it does come back down to these deeper core muscles that are structurally supporting the lower spine and the hips.
Yeah.
Suddenly, like, I got a load of messages from people going, do you know what, I did what you said, and it's just that it's so much better.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of it is this, as women as well, we hold a lot of emotional tension within the pelvis.
Yeah.
So not only have we got kind of like the energy chakras that are in that area, but the actual muscles and the nerve.
I see a lot of that tension coming through the groin and down into the thighs, and so many health issues can be resolved by having good energy. And by energy, I'm talking about blood flow into the legs, because so many of the major acupoints are around the ankles, and so many people have cold feet, that if you can get the good circulation through the pelvis, through the groin, back down to the feet. But the problem is, as soon as I feel that kind of tension, I go, did you have C-sections? Did you have traumatic births? And they're like, well, how did you know? And I'm going, because the tension, you're still holding it all in. And this is again another source of issues, and that's what the shiatsu's nice in that respect, because it's a very gentle way. It's supporting the women while they let go, because it probably takes a brave woman to go to yoga and be able to stretch and open all this up herself. I mean, of course, there are women do that, but might be the ones I see are the ones that haven't gone down that path. But I always say, actually, shiatsu is a great way to get you warmed up for yoga. And because shiatsu gets you in awareness of your meridians and what's going on with your body, and then yoga is your continued self-care.
Yeah.
So the two go together absolutely perfectly, because at the end of the day, it's the energy ley lines of the body.
Yeah, and I think what's lovely is as well, when you actually tune in enough to your body, you can feel that energy moving.
Yes.
Certainly, like when I've gone into yoga poses and they sort of say, right, connect that part of the body there to that part of your mat there, and then that part of your arm goes up to that part, and they go, right, now feel what's happening between your foot and your finger, and you're like, oh yeah, there's like this sort of current of energy going through it. And obviously Reiki and things like that, you're more aware of those little tinkles and those.
I actually got, when I was training with shiatsu, I was so worried about my quality of touch that I went and got Reiki attunement as well. So it when people say, well, what, you're going to give me, shiatsu or Reiki? And I go, well, actually shiatsu is Japanese finger pressure. So it doesn't matter what my tools are, they're going through my fingertips. But you know, the Reiki switches on if it's needed, and but it all comes through the acu touch, really.
Yeah, and I've actually taught some of my yoga classes. I've done kind of like a Reiki infused yoga sort of meditation at the end of it and things like that.
Nice.
And it's the amount of people that just say, do you know what, can we just do like an hour of that?
Yeah.
Like, no. You've got to move your
body.
body.
Actually, but it's good, because that's the thing. If you can get people to, and again, it's a symptom of stress and our bodies being highly wired, that people can't switch off. But if you can get them to the point where they are switched off, they're like, wow, that's an amazing experience. I've never felt like that before. And they feel like that at the end of the shiatsu, but it's almost I've had to manually intervene and press the buttons throughout the body to make them switch off, which again works for people who actually in no shape or form can help themselves switch off. I'm like, and you get used to it, your body gets used to it, and your body starts to, it basically bypasses your brain and says, hey, it's my shiatsu, I'm going to start relaxing, whether the brain's with me or not. Yeah, I think we've always got overdeveloped, and I came from a very intellectual background, a very scientific background, but now I'm appreciating, I think we've intellectualized stuff too much. I have a simple test when I used to do talks in those days, you know, prior to lockdown, and I'd say to people, I want you to sniff this scent, because I was doing some work with essential oils, and I just want you to say, do you like it or not, yes or no? And women struggled to give me that answer, because actually they wanted to say, do I smell this? Do I smell that? What is it? They let the scientific, technical brain take over, when actually I just wanted an emotion. Do you like it or not? I found it very difficult to do, because of just the way we're trained now.
It is like the brain is constantly trying to take over, which kind of takes us back to what we were talking about earlier with like the stress and things like that. The brain wants to constantly analyze every single detail, like what is this smell, like you say, what is this aroma, what is that within it, what can I smell underneath it, what are the undertones, what does it matter?
But I think because our schooling teaches us to question and analyze, very few people, I do come across them, and they're normally very high up in their energetic kind of therapies and circles, they've let go of all of that and said, it doesn't matter, it doesn't, and then you're going, but it doesn't matter.
Just
be. What does it feel like to be? And we've you know, it's like taking a walk in nature, isn't it?
Hugging trees.
And just take the walk in nature and just enjoy a walk in nature, rather than have your head buzzing about, when I got home I've got to do, and I've got to prepare this before, and the kids pack lunches and get them. When you can shut all that out and just be in nature and enjoy nature for what it is, that's, you've achieved that kind of relaxation.
Absolutely. And I had this with my partner a couple of months ago, back in autumn, and we'd gone out for a drive somewhere, and obviously all the leaves were turning on the trees, and I remember walking with him and saying, God, isn't it beautiful, all these different colours on the trees, it's lovely, it's like really picturesque and wonderful. And he said, the only reason you're noticing that is because you've got nothing else going on in your head. You're not worried about anything, you're not stressed about anything, you're just completely like out in the trees. I was like, well, yeah, I am out in the trees. That's why we've come out here, to get away from all of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So
you can still have the worries, but you're not. And I mean, as they say about worrying is 99% of the time is about things that never come true. So I learned to give up worrying pretty much with the shiatsu training, and it's probably one of the most powerful things, because to be constantly worried, gosh, it's affecting your gastric system, your digestive. I mean, it's interrupting so many things. If there's one thing you take away from today, to let go of worry and actually just enjoy nature for your walk in nature, that's actually a really, really good. It you know, just because you're walking in nature doesn't mean you haven't got worries and stresses in your life. It's just you're choosing not to focus on them.
Absolutely. And as we were saying before, the brain trying to do all that over analytical thing, the brain in the sort of like for most women is that kind of, it's the biggest sexual organ in the body. So a lot of that sort of stress, tension, worry, all of those responsibilities that you're constantly thinking about could be having an impact then on your libido, just as the first sort of domino in that cascade.
Yeah, so thinking about it, when you start relaxing, maybe again in the time when we used to have holidays and things, if you find that actually you have a better sex life at those times, that tells you something. When you're away from the stresses of your life, then actually you can think about or feel sexual again. But when, yes, stress literally switches off your libido physically and as we know, mentally. So there's a physical side and things you can do in that realm, nutritional, looking at your nutrition and aspects like that. But yeah, definitely what's in your head is a big part.
It's a big part of it, isn't it? The whole mental stress, mental like you say, worry.
Yeah.
It's a big part of a lot of I had a conversation with one of my clients a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying to her, she keeps waking up in the night time, she keeps waking up with hot sweats and she can't get back to sleep. And I said to her, just, when you wake up next time, just ask yourself quickly, when you wake up, if you remember, are you waking up hot and sweaty, or are you waking up and then you're getting hot and sweaty after you've woken up?
Yeah.
And she texted me the next day. She said, a couple of days later, and she said, I'm getting sweaty after I've woken up. I said, well, that's because you're anticipating the hot sweat. You're anticipating that night sweat. The night sweat is not what's waking you up. Something else is waking you up, and we need to find out what that is. If that's something like you're having a glass of wine at night, and that's your sort of digestive system, and all your stress hormones are suddenly like coming out because you're having a sugar spike.
Yeah,
we need to find that. And it's like since then, over like a few weeks or so, she's managed to sort of curb all of that, and the night sweats have just switched off.
Yeah, absolutely. Night sweats can literally come back to what you eat and drink that night. So it's a lot of what I do, because now obviously I'm a shiatsu practitioner, but with COVID, I've had that taken away from me. So I now help women online, and it made me really focus more now on less on rebalancing them by pressing acupoints and actually telling them how they can do things themselves. Yeah. And so it's very much about what you eat for dinner. Nutritional depletion, magnesium is another biggie for sleep. But yeah, the night sweats is an interesting one, because in Chinese medicine, the liver detoxes between 1 and 3 a.m. And I always liken it to an engine with a filter, the oil filter, which you service your car and you change that every year. But we've got to like mid-40s and never had a service on our liver. So you've got a clogged up liver, and then you're adding in the sugars, the alcohol, the stimulants. So the liver is trying to get all of that out of the blood between 1 and 3 a.m. And the more it has to do, and the more incapacitated it is anyway, because it's a bit clogged up, the harder and faster it works. Then it will call on the heart, so you can get palpitations as well. And it has 2 hours to do that. And then at the end of that 2 hours, it's either going to send sugars to be stored as belly fat, or it's going to put those sugars into your bloodstream. So you wake up at 4 a.m. and go, I'm wide awake now. So it's eating and drinking the night before. It's a big one. Yeah.
You can probably see it on my board actually behind me, like the insulin resistance cycle of doom.
Oh, okay.
Like that whole like going around in circles, and the sugars go there or they go there, and if they go there, then that's what happens.
Because probably not what everybody realizes, that there are some sugars the body can't metabolize for usage. So those are the ones that turn into belly fat, and a lot of women that are getting belly fat at this time of life, they're running around having a busy life, and they're going back and getting belly fat, and there's something in your diet triggering it, and it'll turn out that they're eating like 3 packets of dried apricots a day or something, because actually it's the fruit sugar, fructose, which is the one we don't break down into for the muscles. So it goes to belly fat, and when women start learning things like that, they're like, "Wow!"
And this is something I've said to my clients over many years. It's like they always say, "Yeah, but fruit's got lots of sugar in it." I'm like, "Yes, fruit does have sugar in it, but just because it's fruit sugar doesn't mean to say that it's good sugar."
Yeah.
But if you are exercising and you are doing all of the things to metabolize and break down that sugar,
Yeah.
then you'll be okay. But if you are literally eating 5 apples a day, 2 satsumas, and a bag of dried apricots, like you say,
Yeah.
chances are you're having too much sugar, whether it's good sugar or not.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of education about sugar that can be had. I must admit, somebody sent me a video about at least 15 years ago, and I misread it as 1 minute 30. So I watched it, but it was actually 1.5 hours about sugar. And it blew my mind, because you just don't know these things. And that changed my whole relationship with sugar back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk all day, actually. We just slowly morph through all the symptoms.
You can, and like you can link back, like you can keep going back round and coming back on it, can't you? It's just, there is so much stuff that just links from one thing to the next, and then back to something else, and then and it is literally, it's like the endless, it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? You know, there's just so many different elements of it.
Yes, absolutely. But both of us are here to help.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good point, actually. So before we do anything else, if people want to come and talk to you about obviously shiatsu, when things are allowed to be back more to the normal scale.
Well, to be honest, all the shiatsu's on hold. It's completely Cotswold Menopause for me at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's what, yes, I do a free clarity call, that 15 minutes to get your head straight. We can actually get through a lot in 15 minutes. And then there's consultations. I think I said to you just before, I've got a book. I'm just doing the 2nd edition for Amazon right now. But basically, any way I can help you is on my website. And that's cotswoldmenopause.co.uk. And it's natural solutions, tried and tested ways of relieving pretty much all the symptoms. And there's various ways of working with me.
Excellent. Well, I think it's been really interesting, and I like we said, there's so much more. I think
we could talk for hours, you and me.
I do this. I get on calls with people like Emily or Jane, or it's just like, we could just keep going, couldn't we?
Yeah.
You have to call it a day at some point.
Yeah.
No, I think obviously if anyone wants to get in touch, with Andrea, like she said, go to the Cotswold Menopause website, because it is, I had a look at it before we had this chat, and it's, there's a lot of information on there and a lot of helpful tips on there as well. So well worth having a look. You've got a download on there as well, I think, haven't you?
I have. I've got a free download, Successful Natural Menopause. And really, it's about getting you started. My advice is, if you've got any symptoms, do everything that's in that download, give it a month, and then see what symptoms are left. Because our bodies are so forgiving, and a lot of symptoms that have come on quite quickly, yes, they've been building up for a time, but actually, if you're sympathetic, eat the foods, you do need to take some supplements, then in a couple of weeks, you wipe out maybe a third of the symptoms, and then you're just left with the trickier things, which take time. And that's the other thing. You have to give yourself rest, and you have to give yourself time.
Absolutely. And I think that's really good as well. We both sort of have that same message where, you can, if you can find, what's going on in the first place, and you can take those first few actions, you can wipe out a lot of the negatives, and then you can uncover what's really going on, and then you can start to work on those things which are.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I used to eat a lot of magnesium rich foods, because I thought, I'm getting my magnesium. And then, I learned years ago that, if you're not sleeping very well, try magnesium. And I thought, but I'm eating lots of magnesium rich foods. Took magnesium that night and my sleep changed. So, I think we were saying before we came on that we just don't necessarily have the nutrition. It is all about eating well. It's not about eating wall-to-wall processed foods and taking a supplement.
Yeah.
It's about eating the vegetation for your gut bunnies, for your gut health. But you need the help of supplements to get on top of this at this time of your life. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's been fascinating and really.
It has. Thank you for having me on.
Enjoyed it profusely talking to you. So thank you ever so much, though.
Thank you, Leslie.